All right, everybody, we'll get started. Thanks for joining us this morning for our Q1 webinar. My name is Grace Hollison. I'm an account manager here at TPM. I see some familiar names in the, names in the attendee list, so thanks for joining us. Warren McCray is going to be running the webinar for us. As you can see, he has his camera on. I hope all y'all can see him. Warren, I'm going to hand it off to you, and so we can get rolling here.
All right, well, thank you, Gray, and welcome everyone. My name is Warren McCray. I'm a technical solutions consultant with TPM, and I want to welcome you to Release Your Creativity with xShape and SOLIDWORKS. This presentation will be a detailed step-by-step approach to xShape and SOLIDWORKS. During this webinar, I will present a detailed presentation transforming a cube-shaped primitive into a chair with xShape. I will discuss the differences between surfacing and subdivision modeling. I will answer the question, what is xShape? I will introduce you to the robot and demonstrate how to apply it. After this presentation, you may be familiar enough to start using the software right away. Once the model is completed, I will open the file within SOLIDWORKS and create an assembly where you can add additional components required for manufacture. Then, I will simulate a change request from marketing and return to xShape to make the modifications to the design. When completed, return to SOLIDWORKS and update the assembly with the new revised model. At the end, I will wrap up the presentation with a few examples of the finished model rendered with SOLIDWORKS Visualize and open it up for any questions at that time. Surface modeling allows for designers and engineers to create shapes that are not always prismatic, but are more of a free-form custom shape, where the objective is to create something that is eye-catching or appealing to the viewer. The designer may be more concerned with the look, style, and feel of the product. One may ask themselves, is it cool? Is it targeting the generation we're aiming for? Will people like it? How will it feel in their hands? Is it ergonomic? Appearance typically is their primary concern. Surfacing tools helps designers and engineers create non-prismatic freeform shapes, like the examples you see here. So what is the difference between surfacing and subdivision modeling, or sub-D modeling? In surface modeling, each surface may be modeled separately, and some surfaces are created as reference surfaces to help create the final model. Some products require a smooth transition from one face to another. The ability to blend surfaces seamlessly is much more difficult than it looks, and it's very time-consuming. There must be a better way. Introducing subdivision modeling. With subdivision modeling, users can achieve smooth transitions automatically while they design. You can still use traditional surfacing techniques if needed, as well as add or subtract one shape from another. This can be done by using 3D primitive shapes. These shapes can be divided up, pushed, and pulled to create amazing geometry, while maintaining that smooth transition from one face to another. During this presentation, we will take a close look at this amazing technology and see how easy it is to use. So what is xShape? xShape is an application within the 3D Sculptor role on the 3D Experience platform. xShape is an exciting cloud-based subdivision modeling tool that runs on a browser. xShape allows users to generate freeform shapes in 3D using a workflow that feels more like sculpting than CAD modeling. I will begin the presentation within a single modeling environment where I have already added 2 photographs in an effort to save us some time. The front photo has been attached to the front reference plane, and the side photo has been attached to the side reference plane. I then scaled them to a desired size and lined them up as you see here. This process is very similar to adding a sketch picture within SOLIDWORKS. Now, if necessary, please adjust your volume on your PCs if required.
Okay, so we're getting ready to open up a file here. Like I said, I have the file already started where I've added the images to the front and the right plane, 2 pictures. So here I'm inserting what we call as a primitive. The primitive allows us to be able to scale as well as subdivide the primitive into different sections, whether it's on the front face, top face, or the right face. So here I'm just grabbing the arrow and I'm dragging the primitive out to the approximate size, trying to use the 2 photographs as a guide. I'm not trying to duplicate the chair. I'm just trying to get a feel for this design and try to come up with my own design. So what I'm doing here, I'm window selecting the vertices that's on the primitive, and I'm just grabbing them, and I can rotate. And if I mouse over the graduations on the large values, it rotates, or if I could zoom in or I move into the smaller graduations, it snaps in place. And what you can do is you see with the robot here, I'm grabbing the arrowheads, not the dot on the opposite end of the arrow, but the arrowhead itself, and it allows me to drag it. The dot on the end of the arrow allows you to scale the primitive or scale whatever you have selected. So I'm just looking at it now, and you'll see me do this quite a bit where I kind of look at it and try to get a feel and visually try to see where I am and try to define what I want to do. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting those faces and I'm pulling them down with the robot. And I'm looking at how the face stretch as I scale it and pull it down. So I'm going to window select some more vertices here, grab the arrow and pull it in. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to reduce the back end of the couch, make it a little bit narrow to match. And this probably is a little too much, but I'm going to go with it anyway. And we'll see how we can adjust it as we go through the design. So I just kind of rotate it around and get a feel for what I'm going to try to do next. So I say, well, let me see what happens if I grab this face. And let's see if we can pull this down some more. And notice how it's stretching there. See that? Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're kind of like, you're getting a feel for different things. And the in context menu pops up and gives you options, whether you want to align some of the faces or the edges. Like right here, what I'm doing on the bottom edge of the face here, I'm adding what we call a crease edge. So it takes the edges and it creases it, kind of flattens it out, which is giving me a sharp edge when I want it. So again, what I can do here, notice if you look closely, you see the little green line, that's a symmetry line. I really don't have to select the edges on both sides. I can select the edges on one side, and since I have symmetry turned on, it adjusts the opposite side of the green line. See that? That's the symmetry line. There it is. So I'm just widening that flat creased edge that I created earlier, making it a little bit bigger. I'm trying to create a void for the pillows to sit in inside the couch. But in order to sit there, I need to somehow create an opening for the person to kind of like sit down on the couch. Right now, that front edge is too high. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm just grabbing the edges. Again, I didn't have to grab both edges across the green line. I'm just kind of used to seeing something, just grabbing it. That's just a little habit I have, but it's a fairly flexible tool. It's really easy to use. You just grab what you want, the faces. And if you make a mistake or you pull it the wrong way or it behaves unpredictably or the way you don't want it to behave, you can just hit undo and try it again. So I'm trying to pull these down and I'm watching for the face to crease like it's doing here. See how it's creasing a little bit? So I said, oh, I'm a little bit too far. So now I just look at it again and say, how can I control this? Well, let's see here. So I noticed that the inside edge that I created, that creased edge, it's a little bit low. So I want to pull it out a little bit and make it a little wider down there, and then see if I can adjust the front just a little bit more. Notice it has a pop-up in context menu when you select any of these lines, surfaces, or vertices. So I decided, let's look at another area here. Okay, so let me try moving these faces again. This time I'm going to try picking more than one. There we go, and I'll grab it and pull. So now I'm pulling all three faces at the same time. So instead of it just moving the first face, I actually am moving all three faces simultaneously. That looked okay. So I'm go ahead and see if I can adjust this a little bit more. I'm trying to make it wider so that the material has, won't crease if it's too vertical. I'm trying to make it narrower on the bottom so that when I drag it down, the material doesn't fold on me. So I'm pulling it out, just window select these points, pull it out a little bit. And in this case, it pulled out everything. So what I'm gonna do this time, I drag less entities and get a more refined surface. Now I'm just eyeballing this now. I do have a tool that I could have used, the align tool that will allow me to line entities by line. But in this case, I'm just eyeballing it. Okay, so let's take a look at this again and see what else we could do here. So I'm just going to turn off these pictures, and I'm going to select some of these edges this time and just pull it out a little bit and try to straighten it up a little bit because it was a little bit too narrow, too much of a transition from the back to the front. I can control select entities or edges and pull them out, just like I can control select surfaces. It's really easy to use. And what's kind of cool about this is fun. You look at this and you kind of like, it's like being an artist and you're trying to create something. And in your mind, you kind of trying to figure out, how can I create a particular shape? And you just play with it. And you say, okay, I'll pull this over, I'll move this and see how that looks. Okay, that's a little bit better. You kind of like envision in your mind's eye, what you're trying to create. So I'm creating that little void for my pillows, but that front edge is still too high. I mean, the pillow would have to be hugely thick and I wouldn't have arms here. So this isn't too good. So I need to get the front end down quite a bit. And so I'm gonna try to work on this a little bit more. So I'm pulling the faces again. I'm gonna see if I can pull this down a little bit more. Before I tried it, didn't quite get what I wanted. So I'm pulling it down a little bit more. Now it's kind of dipping down a little bit like that. I didn't like it. Hit undo a little bit here. Let me see if I could do this a little bit more here. Okay, there we go. This is a little bit better. All right, so I'm getting it low in the front, but if you notice, the whole front is kind of like going down as well as the sides. So that I'm gonna have to deal with that later. So, all right, so let's see what else we could do here. So I'll grab those two edges, pull the back a little bit. Adjust the sides. And notice I'm not quite sure how far to pull it up. So I'm gonna turn back on my picture here. And I'm going to turn them back on to see if I can kind of like adjust the shape to kind of match the couch a little bit better. So I'm selecting these faces and I'm pulling them up. There we go. And adjust the back a little bit. That looks a little low. It's dipping down there. So pull up one side like that. And since the symmetry is still turned on, so it allows me to be able to adjust the back edge just like that. Now it was a little bit of a knife edge here. So I need to make that a little bit wider so it's not so sharp. So I'm just trying to pull it out a little bit. So as I go, I just kind of refine the shape and that's it. And you just refine the shape because there is no right or wrong here. It's basically what you like and how you want the product to look. Because we're looking at this from an industrial designer's perspective, you know, what looks good, what will be, I guess, pleasing to the eye, that looks comfortable. So I have to adjust that a little bit more. The side is a little bit irregular, so I'm kind of pull it up, straighten it out a little bit. And I'm gonna keep refining it. So here, what I'm doing, I'm picking individual vertices. And so you can just pick vertices like that, as well as edges, and just drag them out. Now, the problem here is that it's not subdivided enough. I can't quite separate the right shape from the center of the front because it's just not subdivided enough. I need to somehow split that up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add insert loop. And if you pick an edge, it creates a loop perpendicular to that edge and allows me to adjust the location, and then I can subdivide it. And that gives me a little bit more freedom to drag and move the points separately. And I can create like the right side and create a flatness in the front. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm picking the edges, and I noticed the points on these edges are kind of squiggly lines all over the place. You see how they kind of like, they're not lined up. So I'm visually trying to line the points up a little bit. Now we have a tool I could use for that, but in this case, I'm just dragging it and aligning it visually. So just pushing and pulling, you can virtually create what you want. So now I'm adjust the inside a little bit there, make it a little bit wider. And now I have like arms on the left and the right side. I have a little void for my pillow there, and I want to make the edge just a little bit rounder and a little bit wider and thicker so that it's not such a sharp edge. You know, it shouldn't have any pressure on your thighs when you sit down. But your thighs should be hitting that anyway because the pillow should be there. But I noticed some irregularity here too. Notice that it's not straight. It's kind of wavy in the front end there. I don't like that look too much. Well, let's see. I'll make some other adjustments and come back to that later. So now I'm trying to adjust the shape. And what I could do here is just make that a little bit thicker there, pulling those edges. And that's all I'm doing, guys, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a simple selecting an edge and pulling it out. This is easy. It's fun. It's being very creative. You kind of like again, it's like being an artist. And years ago in a prior life, I used to be an artist. So I can visually in my mind see what I'm trying to do. And if it looks appealing to me, then I move on to the next feature. If I'm having too much trouble with a particular feature, I'll start working on another one and come back to it. So now the back of this chair looks a little funny. It's like dips down in the center there, and the back has two humps on the left and right side. So I'm trying to reduce the humps there and kind of like level it out and make them fairly straight. So I'm trying to pick the center point here and pull this up. And I'm right where the symmetry line is. So it's not quite smooth. I'm gonna take a look at it and see what it looks like if I just get out of the subdivide mode and look at it shaded. So here I can look at the smooth surfaces. And what that allows me to do is get a good feel for how it looks. So now I'm gonna use the line to line tool and just select those points, and I can grab the nodes on the line tool and drag it and move it as well. What it did was it lined those vertices up and made the back straight. So now I'm gonna line the second edge there and kind of pull that out a little bit. So it looks fairly straight. That looks good. And let's take a look at it again. Now, see how the back is kind of straight now? It's not so bumpy and lumpy like a mountain range. It's nice and straight. And that's what I want. I need to do the same thing to the front. So I'm going to just pick the points and use my line to line. And it just snapped in place. I can try to drag it and move it, but I'm not really going to mess with that too much. That looks pretty good there. Now, the problem is those vertices aren't straight up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna line them up horizontally first. Then I'll line them up vertically. Let's say, oh, look, notice when I pull this down, you see that? See what happens when I pull that? The fabric or the surface tends to like fold inside. So I realized, whoa, I can't drag it too far. So I just pulled it back up. Now I'm picking 3 more points, hit the line tool, grab it and drag it and move it. And I'm watching, I'm moving it and I'm bumping it to see how it responds. Now I want to line these lines up vertically. So I pick those 3 lines and align them, and then I get this nice line to line. I can grab one endpoint and drag it under the other one and kind of line them up vertically like that. So that's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for what I'm trying to do. I got a nice thick armrest. The pillow area right here is kind of squiggly. I want to make that kind of give it more of a straight edge. So I'm going to use that line to line tool. See, this is just so much fun. I'm actually having a good time. Well, I really don't have any pressure on me to create this model overnight. So I'm really learning the tool, and I learned by watching videos like you're watching this webinar. In this case, I'm control selecting all these faces real fast here. And I'm going to go ahead and crease the edges, kind of pull those edges down and flatten out the surface. And actually sometimes depending on how you select that slider there, it can be a flat enough surface where you can actually make it a sketching plane in SOLIDWORKS. So in this case, it's flattened, but the vertices aren't straight. So what I want to do is select the vertices and straighten them out using the line tool. Now it's straight, see? Well, that's the front edge there. What about the side? Let's take a look at that. And I'm gonna go ahead and control select all these points. Now the front right there is kind of dipping a little bit, so let me pick that one. There we go. And I'll get all of them on the side and the back too. Get that one too, just those points there, and align them. Right there in the context menu, I click on it, there it is. It lines them up. It's a real fine adjustment. So as you see, as I'm doing this, I'm adjusting, I'm looking at it, I'm rotating it around, and they have this nice feature. If you double click on an edge, it'll kind of like SOLIDWORKS, how you propagate along tangent edges. That's what it's doing when I double click on it. It propagates until it comes to a point or something that's not perfectly tangent. And in this case, I'm grabbing those edges now that I got it fairly flat. Then I want to raise the edges and just kind of round them off just a little bit so it doesn't look weird. Okay, because I haven't seen a couch yet that's sharp on the bottom, but most couches, you're wrapping material around the bottom edge. So it's usually fairly smooth, rounded surface there on the bottom edge. So that's what I was trying to apply there. And there it is. And I'm going to save it. There it is. And I'll look at it, shaded. Now that doesn't look too bad. The back is fairly straight. The front is fairly straight. The arms are clearly defined. It's just taking shape. So now what I could do, I can actually come in here and start applying colors to my model. And this is the fun part, because now you really start to get excited here. You say, oh, wow, it looks smooth. I don't see a lot of hard edges here. It looks like a fabric stretched over a frame, which is great. I got some cushion in there. Let me look at these colors. So you got a nice color palette. You can apply colors to the model very easily. What's nice is they also have a section viewer. So you can section a model and look at the interior of the solid model and just use it as a guide. They also have a way to adjust the view mode settings. So where you can define the ambiance, whether you want it dark, interior, different backgrounds. It's like different studios in SOLIDWORKS. And then you can pick what you like. I kind of like using Studio. There's a bunch of other selections that you can select here that will make the model look different ways. And so I'm just hitting the downward arrow here and looking at it in different materials. Now this is good because this gives you a lot of reflectivity and allows you to look for any irregularities in the surface. And then you can look and see if you need to make a change or an adjustment. And of course, you want to find something that's appealing to the eye to keep you motivated, because this is inspiring. And when you're using a tool like this, you become inspired. You're like, oh, wow, I have to make this thing awesome. So now this is what I thought was great to show you guys. You can create a section view And then what you can do is you can section it and look at it and look at just the surfaces. And then you can right click on a robot and change the orientation of the robot to either the XYZ coordinates, or delta X, delta Y, delta Z, or it could be normal to an edge or normal to a surface. And you can actually pull the surface yourself and kind of like watch and see how the surface moves in the section view. So it's not just a section view where you can look at it in the section view, but you can actually work on a model while it's sectioned. They also have some amazing tools like that we're used to, that we all spoil from SOLIDWORKS, right? Because it's so awesome. So guess what? Now we have this tool here, to the measuring tool, because I want to know exactly, you know, how big is that void? So when I design my pillow, I can have an idea or estimate on how big it should be or how small it should be. If it is a particular size, I have a tool that I can use to determine its size. But what I want to show you here, you actually have the ability to add material. So before, it was just I was applying appearance color. Here I'm assigning the material to the entire assembly. The in context menu pops up. I can select the color and I can drag and drop it and apply it to either a face, a body, or to the entire assembly. So it's pretty straightforward, especially if you've used SOLIDWORKS before. A lot of the interface is very similar. So now I'm looking at leather here. Let's try to apply some leather to it. There we go. Look at that. Doesn't that look awesome? So the graphics are nice, and it gives me a feel for, what it might look like. So I took the leather material off, and guess what? We also have zebra stripes. So you can look at zebra stripes in the horizontal or the vertical mode, and you can look at the curvature again, and you can check and see if it's, if you have the smoothness that you're looking for using the zebra stripes. So in this case, I just removed the material and back to my original color. So what I want to do now is add another primitive. Now what's nice is as I mouse over a surface, the primitive will snap onto the surface, or I can snap onto the plane. So in this case, I dropped it onto the plane. Again, when you do bring in a primitive, you can scale it, you can drag it. And there's a couple ways you can do that. You can pull the arrows, or you can hit the scale tool in the menu there. Then you can subdivide it as you see fit. So all I'm doing is just pulling it out, and I'm trying to think of a good size. In this case, that looks decent. So what I'm gonna do, I'm looking at it from the top view, and what I'm gonna try to do here is try to shape this pillow or shape this primitive so it fits the interior of the couch. So what I'm gonna do now, I just kind of moved it over a little bit, and I'm gonna look at it from the top view, and I'm gonna try to just stretch it out by group selecting certain vertices. So now I'm gonna section it and just take a look at this thing and see what's going on, because from the top view, I couldn't really see everything. But by sectioning it, I can see how thick that pillow really was. There it is. It's a little bit really embedded there. So I can pull that up. There it is. See that? See, you could do this. This is easy. And now I'm only working on this primitive. See, when this primitive is active, I'm only working on this primitive. If I Windows select all the vertices, I move the entire primitive. If I select only some vertices, I can adjust, move, rotate, and move just the primitives I have selected. If I want to pick certain edges, certain vertices, I can pick them, drag them, and move the edge just a little bit. Now there's also, in the robot, there's an angular surface you can select, or you can pick the planar surface and move it along. A lot of nice little things. What I'm looking at here, I'm looking at the graphic interface, how the surface is pushed into the couch red surface. And then I know, oh, I went too far. Okay, I know the material is going way inside. And I do want a little bit of interference because most pillows are pressed in place. So there is kind of like a press fit in a couch. So I do want some interference, but I don't want to make too much interference right now. Okay, so you see how I'm grabbing the arrow here and I'm pulling it down. I'm kind of making it conform to the interior of the couch while it's in the section view. Then I can go ahead and turn on my bounding box. A bounding box is a tool that we have in xShape that allows you to look at the overall size, and you can actually scale it to scale. But right now I'm just trying to get a feel for it. So I'm not quite done yet, but it's a little bit better now. I'm a little bit closer here. So I can isolate the pillow and turn on my bounding box, and I can hit the icon here and actually make it to scale, because I have an idea how big I want it to be. And what's nice about this, you have the ability to scale it non-uniformly, or you can scale it uniformly, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to maintain the proportion, then you don't need to check the box to scale it non-uniformly. But if you only want to increase the length, then you check that box and you can change the length or the width to whatever you like. So in this case, I just put in some values just to show you that you can actually model to scale with this tool as well. It's not all visual. This is kind of close to the interior that I wanted. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just going to play with it and just adjust it. Now, when you're messing with this tool, you kind of realize when you have symmetry on and when you don't have symmetry on. If you go and you change one side and you don't have symmetry on, you change one side and not the other. So in this case, I hit undo, I turn on symmetry. So now when I drag it, what I do on one side affects the other side, keeping my pillow symmetrical. And that's what I want. So that's one tool you have to be cognizant of. When it's on, when it's off. If you do change the shape of something, say on the left side, and you didn't have symmetry on, that's okay. Once you turn on symmetry, it automatically adjusts it and updates the model. So now this pillow looks like it's getting there. It's a little thin, but once again, I look at it in the section view. I can look at the interference there, and I can see where it's located and just drag it down and position it in place using the section tool. This I thought was really awesome for a tool that's so easy to move and pull and sculpt. I mean, the graphics is amazing. The lighting, the way it's hitting it is awesome. The fact that I can launch the bounding box and change the scale and increase the thickness from 5 inches to 7 inches. And this time I did it proportional and then increased all the way around as well. So that's a little bit too much interference. So now it's actually pushing into the chair frame and a little bit too much. So I want to adjust that down a little bit more. There we go. There it is. Now it's starting to look like a chair. It's actually taking shape. But we have other tools here that can help me kind of guide my way here a little bit more. And I'm going to show you this other tool in a minute here. So I'm just adjusting the size a little bit. And when I'm doing that, I'm looking at the edges and how it is pushing into the couch. So we have another tool here where I can make the chair transparent. And then I can kind of, it's hard to see, but you can see the overlap. And then I was able to adjust the size a little bit more. So it's not so much, interference there where I have it overlapping. I do want it to overlap a little bit, but not too much. But I'm happy with that now. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna drag in another primitive and I'm gonna try to attach it to the back face for my second pillow here. Now this is kind of cool because it's really easy here. Now I'm getting more comfortable with the tool here, and you'll see when you play with this, you'll start getting more comfortable, you get excited, and then you say, okay, let me just let me make this a little smaller, scale this up a little bit, and create another pillow. So this pillow I'm gonna make a little bit different. I'm going to size it. I'm going to change the corners on this one. And so when I first did this, I really played around. So notice that when I grab things, I pull it and see how it moves and hit undo. And then I see, okay, if I grab all the edges on the right, I could tilt that and change the angle of all those vertices like that. Then I could pull it out. And I rotate the model from a different end so I can see what it looks like. And then I realized, oops, I didn't have symmetry on. Oh, shucks, no problem. Just turn on symmetry and voila. It's just that simple. This is awesome. I'm having fun. I'm actually designing. And then I noticed that the corner is kind of void. I need to pull the corner down a little bit. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to take these edges on the corner and just crease them using the crease edges command, just like we did before. Now I can adjust it so it's not too sharp. I've done it a couple times where I made it really sharp and it has a hard corner, and then I've done it where it's not so hard. And I don't want it too hard right now. But I know if I was sitting on this chair and I tried to sit back, I might hit my head on that back edge. So I might have to adjust that pillow a little bit. Once again, I'll use my sectioning tool to see exactly where the pillow is located so I can get a good feel for its size and see if there's too much interference there. That looks pretty good, but again, the back pillow is a little low, so I'm gonna try to raise this a little bit. So I'm gonna go to the front view, grab just about half those vertices and make sure my symmetry is on and pull it up a little bit. There we go. I'm just making sure this just up a little bit more. There we go. I think that's good enough. So notice my edges are there. It looks like a pillow. Not too bad. So within a few minutes, you can see I've already started to make things come to life. So in this case, I turned on a filter, which allows me to select faces. And then what I could do, I can window select all the faces and apply color to the faces. And now I can start hiding bodies and showing bodies and change the colors. Just like that, I have a nice chair design. Maybe I want to change it and look at it in blue. There we go. That's nice. I mean, some people may have, you know, I've been to some amazing apartments and studios where they have some very elaborate colors, nice colors in the house. I mean, they're not just using brown. They actually have nice colors, white furniture, light blue. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it and I'm going to go to SOLIDWORKS. So here I am in SOLIDWORKS and I'm going to search for my Chair 2 demo file and I'm going to see if I can find it here. So here I'm in SOLIDWORKS. I go to the task pane. I launch the search and it searches the platform because I'm connected to the platform through SOLIDWORKS. Now drag and drop the file and open it up directly in SOLIDWORKS. It's just that easy. Now, here the studio in SOLIDWORKS is a little different than the studio in xShape. So I want to kind of adjust this. So I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to adjust the studio settings so that it looks better. That's pretty reflective there. So I'm going to pick a different studio and just try a 3-point. Now it's starting to look a lot better. Now remember, this was done in xShape and I just imported it into SOLIDWORKS. And guess what I used? 3D Interconnect. 3D Interconnect brings in almost any file format into SOLIDWORKS. So it's connected. You see the little arrow on the left feature manager there where it shows that it's connected to the original file. And that's important because if I want to change my model, it has to be connected. So in this case, I want to create a part file and I'm going to insert the model that I just inserted into SOLIDWORKS. And I'm going to also bring over the visual properties. I'm going to use the locate part command. And the orientation is different in xShape than it is with SOLIDWORKS. So I need to locate the part so that it's sitting the way I want it to sit, you know, so that my isometric view isn't too bad. But in this case, it's going to be opposite, but it's okay. It's good enough for now. So I'm just adding some mates there, mating the planes so it sits straight up. So this file right here, I like to call this file more like a container file. It's a part file with a part in it. The part that was imported from xShape through 3D Interconnect is inserted in this part file that allows me the freedom and the connectivity to maintain my relationship with the original xShape document. So I don't want to mess that up. So what I did was I inserted that part into this container file. So I call it Chair 2 container. So now I have a part file and I'm going to just make an assembly from that part. And now I have an assembly file here with one part in it. Now I can go in and save my assembly and start adding additional components, whatever that might be, whether it's frames, a board in the bottom. So here I'm going to put in a board, I'm going to put in some feet, and I'm going to just position it and mate it together using standard mates, mating the planes together. Now in this case, I just pre-designed the part so I know where the planes are, I know it works. And then what I did, I created the feet for this chair, and I made references to it so it snap in place automatically. So I can just drag and drop my feet onto the chair, they snap into the holes, they're fully seated, and it's good to go. So now I can inspect it from the top and the bottom, front view, and my chair is coming to life from a simple cube primitive to a fully functional assembly. And as you know, in SOLIDWORKS, we can redefine the front, top, and right plane so that my ISO view looks like an ISO view per, 30-angle projection. And now I can look at it in different studios. So now I'm looking at it with Warm Kitchen, and I can save it. There we go. And I can look at it with the edges shown or without the edges shown. It's not too bad. But of course, there's a change, lo and behold. So now I'm back in xShape, and turns out marketing didn't like the arms. They thought they were too narrow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a boss extrusion to the arms, and I'm going to rotate those faces and make the arms wider so that they can either put a cup on the ends, or just so that the person sitting in the chair can rest their arms on there, whether they have large arms, small arms. I need a little more space, and otherwise, your arms kind of like want to fall off the chair. It's just too narrow. So here I just used the same techniques I did before, but I rotated the faces down. But it looks a little irregular, and I'm not too happy with that. And it created a little bulge in the center, and maybe push it on the sides of the person sitting in the chair. So I'm gonna open that up a little bit more by pulling the surfaces out. So you can see, I mean, this is fun. I'm actually having a good time with this, and I don't like the way that's it's all discombobulated over there. It's just all crooked. So I can right click on the robot and make it normal to screen or normal to a face, and I can adjust and pull those vertices out and just straighten it out. I can also use the crease edges command to kind of like flatten out those edges on those faces that I'm selecting, and adjust the magnitude of that creased edge with the slider until I get it in the position that I like. And you have to really kind of like, again, you play with it until you get it to where you like it. So we're looking at this from an industrial designer's perspective, what you think looks cool, what you like. In this case, I want to line those points up, so I'm going to use the line align tool again and just line them up. Same with those points, because they really are crooked on the side like that. So I'm going to line those up. There we go. Now they're straight. And do a little bit more refinement here, and I'm almost ready with the chair. So we got a design change, and now we made it a little bit wider. It's wide enough for me to be able to rest my arms on there comfortably. And so I'm gonna save that. So I'm in xShape. I designed it in xShape. I make a change in xShape. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just bump the revision to B1. And just revise the arms. I didn't have to do that, but I just did that to show you that you can add a revision to the model if you choose to do so with an OVR lifecycle management software that's built in. So I'll save it. And as you can see, I have a feature tree on the left, and I can save my model and go back to SOLIDWORKS. So I go to SOLIDWORKS, and here's my original version, and I want to update it. So I go back to my 3D interconnect file, and I hit update model. When I go to update model, it goes and shakes hands with the model in xShape. It updates automatically. So now my arms are wide, they're ready to go, and it's just that simple, guys. This blew me away. The fact that Dassault Systems made it so that SOLIDWORKS can communicate directly with xShape, and xShape can communicate directly with SOLIDWORKS. We'll bring the entire SOLIDWORKS community a whole host of additional capability and flexibility of all the different apps that's available on the 3D Experience platform. In this case, you can create beautiful products like this using xShape and SOLIDWORKS Visualize. So these are the same chair rendered with SOLIDWORKS Visualize.
Let's recap what we just reviewed today. So during this presentation, we saw how a primitive shape can be transformed into a consumer product design with xShape. We saw how easy it is to select edges, faces, and vertices to make small adjustments to the model. We demonstrated how the model can be imported directly into SOLIDWORKS where other components can be added. If a change is required, we can update the freeform model within xShape and then update the SOLIDWORKS model. Finally, we saw some examples how we could bring the products to life with SOLIDWORKS Visualize.